Hello, hello. Welcome to the 5 Talents Podcast. I'm your host, Abel Pacheco. I interview the top commercial real estate investors and industry experts so you can learn from their experiences. So if you're an investor, a high W-2 earner, or real estate or tech sales professional that wants to invest in real estate without having to manage properties or leave your day job, then this podcast is for you. Or if you're already investing in real estate, but you're doing it part-time and you want to become a full-time multifamily or full-time commercial real estate investor, this podcast is for you too. You're going to learn a ton. You will learn from real-life multifamily investors and other professionals in the industry. They're going to share their blueprints for success, and I'm super excited that you're here. So I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, hello. This is Abel Pacheco, your host for the 5 Talents Podcast. We are super excited today to have an amazing guest, Mr. Brad Freyer. Brad, how's it going, brother? Are you doing good?
Doing good, man. I'm excited to be here. It's been a while, and so it's good to see your pretty face.
Yeah, I love it, man. Thank you very much, Brad. For those that don't know Mr. Brad Freyer, he is principal at Sandler Training, and he has one of those backgrounds that, you know, every one of our listeners, every one of our guests is really going to take a few nuggets on, whether it's running a business, being an entrepreneur, working on negotiations, helping businesses create increased sales volume, which we all know is the biggest part of success in any business, especially in the small to medium-sized businesses when you're getting off the road. So a lot of us are trying to invest in real estate, commercial real estate investments, and having somebody like Brad in your background, whether it be in your professional, personal career, or as an entrepreneur, is definitely going to help you. The goal is get as much capital as possible to go invest that seed and make it grow. So Brad, over the years, we ran into each other at Rackspace, as a tech company that I worked for. As I think many of our listeners know, I probably said it 1,000 times by now, but we had this, small to mid-sized business, $100 million a year business. We went to $2 billion. So I guess technically we were a unicorn. And during that run, I was there at Rackspace. We had Sandler to train us and provide some insight on how to grow. And so when I talk about education and coaching and the expertise that I leveraged through those years that I still try to do today, Brad was one of those experts that we leveraged to help us grow. So I thought he would be a perfect individual to have on our show today. And he's again, trainer there. He's trained companies and helped coach companies like Dakin, Train, Mass Mutual, Toshiba. So anyways, we're going to have a great show. Brad, thank you very much for joining, man. Let me turn it over to you for a second. In your own words, tell us who you are and what you do, and we'll just start a great conversation here.
Oh man, that's a bit of a broad question, man. I'm I'm a simple guy. Right now my focus is I'm a Sandler trainer. Spend a lot of time coaching and training salespeople, leadership teams, helping them figure out where they're going and how they're going to get there, specifically on the revenue generating side of the business.
Mm-hmm.
But man, me as a person, got two daughters at home, married for a long time, a couple of hobbies, and try to just enjoy life.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, that's awesome. How old are your little ones?
Well, they're not little anymore, man. I've got a senior in high school who's graduating in 2 days,
Wow.
and a
Congrats.
freshman. Yeah. It's today's her last day of school, so
Hey,
it's been a surreal moment.
man, that's amazing. It's been many years since we met each other, and
Uh,
man, it's good to see the little ones growing. They are in high school, getting ready to get out. Woo!
yeah,
Time. What's the time, man? Well, that's
crazy.
great. Congratulations. And so let me start. With kind of in that family perspective. You have an amazing run, I guess, so far in your professional, your personal, your entrepreneurial world. So today you're a principal at Sandler. Prior to this, you were just coming off of an exit. Maybe you can tell us about the company you you invested in and what you were doing and how that run went.
Yeah, so I first got started in Sandler in 2003. I mean, I came out of University of Texas, and originally I wanted to go to law school,
Mhm.
and I went and had some conversations with folks who were familiar with law school, and the first question they asked was, hey, do you like to read? And I said, not really, and they said, well, law school's not for you.
Not for
So
you.
so I got out of undergrad and had no clue what I was going to do, and stumbled across a sales job.
Yeah.
Um, Ended up doing pretty well in sales in my first job. Went from rookie to top performer. Uh, got a different job. Went from newbie to top performer. And so I just over 3 or 4 sales jobs, I just kind of continued to succeed. Mainly because I've never fashioned myself as a smart guy. And so I would look for people that were successful, and I would reach out to them, and I would say, hey, what are you doing to be successful? How do you do it? Can I follow you? Can you tell me what to do? And if they would give me advice, I would just listen to it. I would do exactly what they told me to do.
Yeah.
And early on in my career, I invested in myself. I went to Miller Hyman and Brian Tracy and all that kind of stuff. And so had a pretty good run in sales for several years. And then I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. My grandfather, my dad, we just have a lot of entrepreneurs in the family. And so in 2003, bought a Sandler franchise, and from 2003 until 2014, ran that office here in Houston, and we became one of the biggest franchises in the world for Sandler. We were in the top 5 or 6 out of
Wow.
300.
Wow.
And
There you go, man. Yeah.
yeah, and so at some point you start thinking that you can do anything, right? And
Yeah.
so there was the idea of diversification, and so we took a step back and said, let's go buy a company that that that's doing okay, that we can improve, turn it around, put leadership team in place, and let them take care of it. And so in 2015, bought a manufacturing company, and I stepped into to kind of run it while also doing Sandler,
Yeah.
and got hit with a couple of buzzsaws. 15 was a rough year to be buying a manufacturing company in Houston, because that was
Okay.
on the tail end of the oil slide. But I
Mm-hmm.
think oil spiked in around 14 and was sliding in 15 and hit rock bottom in 16, 17.
Mm-hmm.
So it really ended up taking up a lot of my time and being kind of all consuming. And so I focused on that, and had some investors in the business. And in early 2020, there was some conversations about kind of realignment of partnerships, and they wanted to have majority ownership. And so um, sold majority stake to them, and I was no longer responsible for running it. I still own a piece of the business, still own a piece of the real estate, but not
Yeah.
responsible for the day to day. And when I got out, I started thinking about, what do I want to do next, and talked to a lot of executive recruiters about going to work for big corporate, and I just kept getting pulled back to Sandler. I just enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. Good good income. Good lifestyle. So here I am
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, here we go. Well, that's awesome because just to kind of hear the entrepreneurial spirit, right? Starting your own company or getting one of your own, kind of that franchise, you grew it from start to the top 5 out of 300, that they have. That's amazing. And I guess it sounded early on, you knew, hey, I'm not going to read these books and this law. I'm not going to cite these cases from 1955 and
Yeah,
oh, well, let me reference this other case. You're like, yeah, no, I want to go
yeah,
out and go do something. So
yeah,
you knew that early on, and
yeah.
that kind of just came in bloom, man. So that's awesome. And now I love to hear your owner in part of the real estate, which is what I like from the passive standpoint. Let somebody else handle those day-to-day operations, my friend. I do the same.
Man, I tell you, it's funny because the 5 years in the manufacturing, the first 2 were first year was okay. Second year
Mhm.
we got hit with the buzzsaw. We lost our biggest client
Yeah.
um, overnight, our most profitable client, and so the next 2 years were pretty rough.
Yeah.
And there was years there where I was going, man, for the money we spent on this business, we should have just gone out and bought real estate. So, I mean, honestly, that was one of, there was a lot of lessons learned. I've started, a handful of companies over the years. Some succeeded, some failed.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of lessons I learned through acquiring an existing business with an existing team, with existing customer base, and yada yada.
Yeah.
And looking at what that requires versus looking at what you do on the real estate front, that has more of a it's more scalable and expandable model in what you do than what we did. And that was a big lesson learned for sure.
Yeah, every business has challenges, and a lot of times most of the challenges are around people. So that's where all of our challenges are born from, on our side or our customer side, one of the two. But
absolutely right.
Yeah, the purse is given, and the gold is given to those who can figure that how to manage those out effectively, either on our side or also with those. So that's cool, man. I love hearing it, and I'm gonna pose a few questions to you that I think will help, because our listeners are the people that you train over and over and over again to help them have success. And expand their businesses, grow their commissions, earn more. And they are the people that you're helping every day in that job. And or business ownership, whatever. From that perspective, I'm trying to take as much of that commission, much of that capital from the exits from a business. I'm trying to make sure that I can have as much profit so that I can invest it and have some passive income streams where I know my active work every day, I gotta do it. I gotta grind and make a seed, but I gotta go put it somewhere. Because if I don't, man, I'm working till I die. Right. So how to go create it. And that's a lot of our listeners in one shape, form, fashion, or another, whether they're already investing in commercial real estate or they're aspiring. So you've got a lot of tips on how to help people and, create more active income, man. So why don't we start here? You said something, I think you said multiple things I already wrote down, brother. You help people understand where they're going and how to get there. You help companies understand, hey, where are you going and how are you going to get there at the highest level, right? Maybe you can start there. What does that mean, and how do you help others?
Yeah, I mean, look, most people have no idea what the future looks like. They've got dreams, they've got ideas, but they haven't really solidified it. Whether it's, Jim that works in the cubicle next to you, or Bob that runs $100 million company. So many people don't invest the time to figure out what does the future look like for me, and not just creating that vision, but actually writing it down. What does 3 years, 5 years, 10 years look like? An exercise I do with teams all the time is I will say, hey, do me a favor. Think about the last big vacation you took. And they'll say, okay, got it. All right. So what was involved in preparing to take that vacation? And they'll say, oh, well, I had to do research. Okay. And I had to figure out where I was going to go. And I had to think about, do I want to do beach or mountains? And then I had to do research on locations. And then I had to figure out how I'm going to get there. Is it going to be planes, trains, automobiles, cruises? Then I had to start booking stuff. And I had to book transportation and hotels and excursions and da-da-da. Then I had to go shopping for all the sundries. And then I had to pack. And then I had to take care of my pets. And I said, so how much time did you invest planning for that week-long vacation? And they'll say, oh, God, I don't know, 60, 80 hours.
Yeah.
That's fair. Well, how much time have you spent planning for your future?
Golly. Yeah.
And then there's this.
It's just like me. I'm like, golly. Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody does. Right.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of reasons why. Right. I mean, some of us don't know how. We've never been taught. Some of us are afraid of success or afraid of failure. Some of us are just, it's out of sight, out of mind. We don't really think about that being a part of our life. So there's a lot of reasons why we don't do it. But like when I go into a company, I'll sit down with the leadership team for a day and say, okay, let's paint a picture of where we are. Let's be very specific on where we are as a company right now. All right. And then what date do we want to pick for the future? Do we want to pick 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? All right, let's pick 5 years. All right, now let's paint the picture of what that looks like. Revenue, profit, market share, client makeup, culture, org chart, right? All of that stuff.
Yeah.
And then we say, okay, if that's where we want to go and this is where we are, what's the delta, right? What's the gap between where we are and where we want to go? And what are the steps it's going to take to get there? Yeah. Where do we need to start? Because it's an incremental path. And people with with personal lives, it's the same thing. Everybody wants to be richer, prettier, healthier, more successful, whatever, but nobody's really thought about, what do I need to do today to get there? Savings doesn't happen one day you wake up and you go, crap, I got $1 million in the bank.
Yeah.
Savings happens because you decided that every paycheck you're going to peel off $50 or $100 or $1,200 or, whatever that is. It's what are you doing today to achieve those goals, short term, midterm, and long term. And if you haven't taken the time to clearly paint the future, then this is the old adage: if you're not working towards your dreams, you're probably working towards someone else's.
Yeah. Son of a gun. I love it, Brad. I knew you were the when I pinged you, I go, man, we got to come on my show. And I know you're a personal buddy of mine, but additionally, you had so much value to me and my team success. I mean, if you've heard my story, we went from $5 million a year for like me as an individual. And then we were on a run for the next 5 or 6 years where we went from $5 to $57 million, our organization. And we went from I managed me and a small team to 50, 60 people. And that, run where it was a lot of the things that you taught us and trained us, and all the same guys that were with us. I was there for 10. Some of the guys were there for 6 or 7. They applied the things that you taught us year after year after year, So this is even just the goal setting part of it. So if you're listening right now and we're thinking, well, shoot, no, I've never spent the time, or I haven't done it in a while to sit down and understand where you're going. I love the way, you're basically, hey, you gotta engineer this thing. What are all the steps that it took to get there, to get that vacation? Well, there's a lot of steps that are going to occur if you want to create your first $1 million in wealth. Or if you're already at 2, well, how the hell are you going to get to 4? Right. So you gotta plan the stuff out. It just doesn't naturally happen. So I love that part of it. And I remember something from Rax that you brought up. You said, well, everyone's got to know where you're at today. You got to have a good level set of where everyone's today before you can determine where you're going. And you had described to us, the sales team, you sat down with multiple leaders, I think, on the path to winning Rackspace business as a coach or with a trainer. And nobody could really tell you the same answer. Like, what kind of company are you and where are you guys going? Everyone had different answers, right? So if there's, whether you're a small business owner and you're buying your next commercial deal and it's a $15 million deal, you still have 2 or 3 or 4 partners. And if you don't know where you're at today, it's hard to say where you're going if you don't clearly set that out. So anyways, maybe you can talk about like even that's hard for a lot of people to say, this is where I am today. And everyone's on the same thought process, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned before, I'm a huge believer in outside assistance, right? Because sometimes it's the forest for the trees. So even as an individual contributor, in my early days in sales, I always asked for help. I always had mentors, I always had coaches, and not necessarily paid coaches, but just people who I saw as successful, and said, hey, just tell me what you do, because there's a reason that comfort zones exist. Comfort zones exist because we feel safe and secure there. And so we oftentimes don't want to step outside of it, but they also exist because a lot of us don't know any better. We haven't identified that there's a different way. We haven't identified that there's a gap in our performance or in our behaviors or in our techniques or in our belief systems. And so, so much of getting on the same page as the leadership team, right? So when I sit down with an executive team, a lot of sometimes it's the first time they've ever talked about this. And, they've talked about it anecdotally, or, the CEO, president of the company has said, hey, here's the hill we're going to take. We're going to be $150 million, but he didn't talk to anybody else about it.
Yeah.
And so because it wasn't a collaboration and I'm not talking about leading by consensus, but I'm saying getting the team involved in that vision gets everybody believing that it's achievable. Because I'll sit in these meetings and it can go a lot of different ways, right? It can go the path where there's an idea or a number created and everybody's like, yeah, that's a good number. That's a good number. And that's a plan. I've had others where, the owner or the president thought that this is what the future should look like. And then the executives on the team were like, well, we think it could be this. He's like, really? Yeah. Oh, well, let's talk about it. And then I've had others who have, hey, we think that the owner president thinks it should be this, and everybody else on the team is like, there's no way it's going to be this, right?
Yeah.
And so unless you're having that deliberate dialogue, it's really difficult to know how to get there. And, we've all heard the adage, working on the business, not in the business. And, you get rolling and you're doing your chores, you're doing your tasks, you're managing, you're overseeing, you're dealing with customers, you're putting out fires, and you're spending too much time in the business. And it's really difficult to take that deliberate step and take a step back and work on the business, much like it is with our personal lives, right? Building personal or family wealth is difficult because you get into that daily grind. You start making more money, and then you identify that, hey, I can spend that. Next thing you know, 3 years have passed. You got a kid graduating from high school, and you're like, holy shit, I'm old. Sorry, I don't know if I can cuss on there.
You're all good. I mean, that's the truth of it, right? Is you described me right there too, up until a few years ago. And that's because I was investing in real estate. I started investing in real estate in 2008. So nice. I would take all the commission, everything you taught us how to go make a ton more of. I'd go make go make it. And then I'd put it in a single family house. And I did that. I bought 8 houses over 10 years. And then it was a switch that flipped to commercial real estate. We went from in 10 years, 8 houses. And then in the last 2 to 3, we're over 800 doors. And nice. So that's a little bit of a flip that switched. But kind of what you're saying is it's hard to even identify that there was a gap, because I thought I was on the right path as an individual, right? I thought I was on the right path. Me and my wife, real estate is how millionaires are made. I'm going to go make a lot of money here. In which my majority of my time, 50, 60 hours a week, was rack space, sales, my team, grow the quota, quota's growing, hit the return, make sure we're doing it. 5 to 50 million, 50 million, we're crushing it. But I'm putting that little extra coin into houses, and I look back and it was like 2006. I go, well, that was 8 years. And that's one of the first times that I guess in 2004, I started measuring personal financial statements, my net worth, assets, my liabilities. And I go, shoot, I'm not a millionaire yet. I'm like nowhere close. So I'm like a quarter of the way there. And it wasn't until I realized there was the gap that we identified and how to improve that. Okay, now we made our first $1 million net worth. And I'm like, okay, this is how to go. And now I can measure we're on our way to 2, and then, we'll keep doubling it. But that comfort zone is so that it's hard to do that. And you mentioned something else, invest in yourself. You've been investing in yourself, I guess it sounds like probably your whole life. Tell us a little bit about what that means. We hear it a lot also. We hear that a lot.
Well, I mean, it's for me, I just don't trust the stock market. I was an early investor in the stock market, and I wrote it up, and I remember, feeling wealthy. Then I wrote it down and remember feeling devastated.
My rack space stock was the same.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
They gave it to me. I had it, and I was like, oh my gosh, on paper, this is nuts. And then it kept going down and down. And I was in a spot, you can't sell it if you're an employee and they're going public. And, anyways, yes.
Yeah.
I was with you, brother.
And you watch the market today, and I mean it's such a rigged game. I mean, you look at the things that are going crazy with Bitcoin and stuff like that, and it makes no sense at all. But it's just going crazy, and it's a rigged deck. There are strong philosophies that say, hey, invest in an index fund or a S&P, because
Yeah.
the rich people will always make sure they're making more money, and so if you have time, it'll work out, and that's fine. But me, I've always invested in myself. So been an entrepreneur, and I tend to invest with other entrepreneurs. Right, I own stake in local banks and in a boot manufacturing company, Ranch Road Boots. I've got stake in the manufacturing company and the real estate. So and I've taken swings at others.
You mean they haven't all won, Brad?
Yeah, no,
You mean
no,
we don't we don't win every sale either?
no, and part of it also is knowing what you're trying to accomplish when you do it. There was a company that I invested in out in there's two companies that I invested in out in California. One was a beverage company that made a liquid concentrate coffee that was going to be in every 7-Eleven around the world. That it made good cups of coffee that kind of like a soda dispenser.
Yeah. Okay.
And they had a pretty decent run, and then got sideways with some management issues, and then torpedoed. Now, had I had a game plan when I invested in it, my investment my shares had basically quadrupled in value at one point in my ownership.
Wow.
And I was just kind of I was committed for the long haul, for them to get acquired or bought up by Nestle or somebody like that. And so that was a long play. But had I been a little bit more deliberate with a game plan, a strategy, or a goal, in hindsight, I should have peeled off half of it and said, you know what, I'm going to take my winnings for half of it. I'll leave the other half in for the long.
Perfectly fine. You'd have been perfectly happy to double your money at that point, right?
Yeah. So knowing the game plan, knowing the vision, knowing the goals of everything that you're doing, they certainly aren't all winners. I mean, I've had at least, I've had one company that I started with an acquaintance that was early on in my professional life, and that one tanked. And I've had a couple of investments that that went to literally zero. So it happens. As an entrepreneur, you roll the dice, you take the risk with the reward, right? If you win, you're going to probably win big. If you lose, you're probably going to lose big. So if you don't have the stomach for that, that's not the place to play, right? Yeah. If you're a traditionalist where you say, hey, I just want 6% every year on my money, and put it in an S&P and whatever, and as long as you don't need to pull it out that one year that the market has a correction or has a recession, you'll be fine long term.
Yep.
So
this is good. This is a good mindset, right? It's
but the thing that you mentioned is something that I wish I had learned in my 20s, which is passive cash flow.
Okay.
Well, that's one thing because that was the reason we bought the manufacturing company. That was the expectation there. That company, we would put leadership in place, we'd peel off, a chunk every year of income without having to do anything for it, while building a substantial asset. And so theoretically, we were going to treat that like a high return piece of real estate. But it didn't play out like that. I mean, it's still probably a base hit.
Actively involved in that deal. That's what it sounds like, especially when things are going in the wrong direction. You're like, I got to get in here and make it happen, right?
That's right. Yeah. And and short term, it hasn't turned out to be what I wanted it to, but the book's still being written. We still have time, still have shares, and so it's probably a base hit right now, and it could turn into a double or a triple at some point.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that sounds awesome. Well, this is good. I think for those listeners, more than a few things Brad's mentioned, investing in yourself, taking a swing, right? you gotta swing the bat. Otherwise it's not gonna happen. And yes, you strike out every once in a while. Something me and my wife talked about when we were making our first passive investment, Brad. It was 120 something units, real close to San Antonio and Seguin. And we're looking at this, long 100-page document. It's a private placement memorandum. It's our subscription documents, register with the SEC. And we're like, oh my gosh, this whole document. Anyways, 50 grand was the first investment. And my wife looked at me and goes, she's like, hey, we could lose all our money, right? And I said, yeah, we could lose 50 grand. It took us a while to save that chunk up. So, and then she's almost on the same breath. She goes, but if we don't risk it and we don't try it, then we're going to be like working till we're old anyways. Right. And I go, yeah. So she goes, if, and then I'm thinking, if we lose it, I'm going to work till I'm old anyway. So like the alternative is you're going to work till you're old anyways, whether you lose it or not. You're still like, I'm trying not to work till I'm old. And if the worst case scenario is I'm working till I'm old, there's no change on that unless you risked the investment. And that's what that really first conversation was like, man, if I don't change anything, we're going to be working till I'm old and gray anyways. Might as well risk it. Right.
Yeah.
So that was it. So
no argument.
Yeah. Hey man. So this has been an awesome conversation so far. And I think you're definitely helping a few people, even on the mindset. Well, the last few minutes here of our conversation, let's not have this thoroughbred horse in the stables. Let's let him run. Give us some sales advice. Give him some insight on how to get more business. So some of our listeners, I'll frame it. Some of our listeners want more investors to come into their front door to go do more deals because we're a commercial real estate investing podcast, right? Yeah. Some of our listeners are entrepreneurs. They're not running the deals. They just want, in their own personal business, they have a business and they're trying to make as much profit so they can invest with us. Right. And then some of our audience are like technical sales professionals, executives, and they want their team to do well so they can make more money to invest. Hello. You're listening to the 5 Talents Podcast. I'm your host, Abel Pacheco. If you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you're serious about achieving financial freedom. Are you ready to create your own path through multifamily investing for yourself and your family? Then I know you're going to appreciate our Investor's Guide to Multifamily Investing. It's titled Tackling Commercial Real Estate the Easy Way. We use this guide to invest ourselves in $93 million worth of real estate. So we're going to show you the basic mechanics of multifamily syndications and how to evaluate your next passive investment opportunity. So the best part, if you subscribe to our podcast now, leave us a review and a rating. I'm going to give you a free copy of our ebook. So please take a moment to do that now. Once you've done that, go to 5tcre.com/ebook, 5tcre.com/ebook. Make sure to let us know you left a review and we're going to send you a free copy. So thank you so much for subscribing to the 5 Talents Podcast. We really appreciate it. So give us some all around, just piece of advice that we can apply.
Here's a silver bullet. No, I don't.
Here's the one thing that I've never told anybody in any class. Here it is.
Yeah, that's when the technical glitches start kicking in. Yeah. Man, there's no secret. At the end of the day, create a vision for what you want to accomplish and build a plan, and then work the plan every single day. I know that you're a big faith-based guy, as am I.
Big time.
And I believe that if you do the right things, good things happen. Lead with honesty, lead with givers gain, and know every day what you're doing to succeed. Right? Know, even if it's just something small, just like with personal health, you don't get out of shape overnight. You don't get fat overnight, and you also don't get healthy overnight.
Yeah.
But you have to do something every single day to contribute to your success or to contribute to your failure, because people aren't overnight successes and they're not overnight failures. It happens. It happens over time. And so the choice is, what am I doing today to be successful? And if you're running a business, if you're in sales, if you're trying to create um, a portfolio or a fund, and you're trying to bring in investors, you have to contribute some activity every day to building those relationships, to developing your team, to prospecting, whatever job function you're in, doing something proactive every day that's going to contribute to your success. Right?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm looking for investors, I'm not going to have a day that's going to be my day to blitz for investors. I'm going to be constantly having conversations and constantly educating people on who I am, what I'm trying to accomplish. Even if they're not the person, maybe they know somebody that is, and asking for introductions, asking for referrals, giving them things to think about, so that if someone else mentions to them, yeah, man, I got some money on the sideline right now, I'm trying to figure out what to do. Oh, really? You should call my boy Abel. He's got this great fund and yada yada yada. So it's the key is to do something every day proactive towards your goals, whatever that goal is.
Yeah, I love it. Create a vision, work the plan, lead with honesty, and doing the same, doing it daily. That's it. All comes down to every single day. And you also mentioned proactivity, being proactive. It just doesn't happen. No reaction, right? You can write everything you want down, but if you don't work the plan, it's freaking not going to happen. Right? That's for sure. And
that's what separates winners from losers, man. Winners do the stuff, losers don't.
Yeah, I mean, sitting around daydreaming is very different than, here's my goal written down, and here's the steps and action I need to take, and then every single day grind at it. Right.
That's right.
Just a little bit every day.
Every day.
The 1% difference adds up if it's Monday through Friday, or the next 10 years. It makes a big impact. So I love it.
That's right.
You also mentioned earlier, like comfort zones, right? Even just, that it's so simple. What you just said, super simple.
It really is. It's just hard.
Create the plan, work it, and do it every day. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think all of us, or hopefully many of us listening, I think we all know that, but it's so hard this little 6 inches between our head. It says this, I can't, it's not that easy. It's not that, man, how do we get out of our comfort zones? What have you learned over the years? And give us any of this insight too.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, you hit the nail on the head. It's simple, but it's not easy. Right. And that's the distinction, just because the concept is simple. I mean, personal health, the concept is simple: input, output. Don't put crap in your body, and do a little bit of exercise or activity every day, and you will stay in relatively decent shape.
Yep.
It's not complicated, and it doesn't have to be complicated to be good. Right? It's simple, but it's not easy. Right? It's not easy because when I go to the grocery store, I see the ice cream, which is my Achilles heel. I'm a sucker for pizza, and so every time I'm on Instagram and I see El Presidente Dave Portnoy doing a pizza review, I'm like, dude, I want pizza today. And so I mean, it's not easy, but it's simple. And so the same with going after your goals. The formula is simple, right? If you want to save money to invest, it's just math. Right?
That's it.
And so what does that mean? Well, it means that, maybe instead of driving a 3-year-old BMW, I should be driving a 6-year-old Honda, because that would save me $200 a month in car payments that I could put towards, savings. Maybe instead of a 6,000 square foot $1 million house, I should be living in a 2,500 square foot $400,000 house, because that would save me $2,500 a month in mortgage payments. So the decisions and doing the stuff is not easy, but conceptually it's simple. We just have to make the tough decisions. And getting outside of our comfort zone has a lot to do with self-awareness, has a lot to do with listening to other people. One of the biggest mistakes I made with buying the manufacturing company was I had a lot of people that I brought into my circle to help advise and consult and coach on the acquisition, but I didn't listen to all of them.
Mm.
And if you're going to surround yourself with smart people and you're going to ask for advice, listen to them, right?
Yeah.
Because they'll tell you where your blind spots are. They'll tell you where your comfort zones are, and they'll tell you how to get out of it.
Mm. Yeah. So many good, parts here. It is just math. It's just a plan backwards. If you
Yeah.
need $50,000 to invest in a deal passively, like we do commercial real estate investments, right? So we're buying 10, $15 million deals. Well, we put a minimum investment of about $50,000. So a lot of people go, well, where do I get my first, seed? How do I do that? I'm like, man, well, that was a lot of years for me. Just, you got to go to work every day and save it. How long will it take you to save 50K? Go do it. Or get a side hustle and figure out how many hours you could do. And I worked on, Craigslist, and I sold all kinds of stuff. I bought and sold stuff until I had another 50K, and I'd go put it in there. So it is just math, whatever that math may be for your side. And if you're trying to figure out, well, I want to be a millionaire. Okay, well, cool. How much money do you need to invest, and how much, return do you need to make over what time? And if you're already at 1 million, probably a good number of us listening, you're trying to get to 2 or 4. It's the same thing. Now apply the mechanics to the bigger number. So I like that. And then the overnight success is usually a 12-year run, 15-year run prior to this overnight success. It just finally happens because you've been chipping away this thing every single freaking day for however long, right? I love that, man. This has been an awesome conversation, Brad. I love it, and we'll just keep getting after it. Is basically the mindset I have, man.
Awesome, brother.
Put one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
Before you go, I may have at least another question. But before you go, if anybody wants to get into your world, learn a little bit more about your coaching or training, the services that you can provide to people as individuals, or really your focus is small to medium-sized businesses plus,
Yeah,
right?
predominantly. Yeah. I mean, I work with Fortune 100s, but most of my time is spent with that small to mid-size because we can make the biggest impact with those companies.
Big impact. Okay, so who do you want to reach out to, and where do they go if they would like to talk with you about that?
And if you're a president, owner, CEO, or sales leader, and you are responsible for revenue growth of a company or growth and health of a company, but you're frustrated because you're not seeing the growth you want, or you're frustrated because you can't seem to get that team together doing what they need to do to get you where you want to be, or the entrepreneurs, right? So many entrepreneurs are naturally gifted salespeople, and they're trying to build a team that can do what they do, but they're not able to do it because nobody can do what they do because it's non-transferable. I mean, if those are the frustrations you're dealing with, my name is on this podcast, Brad Freyer. Easiest way to hit me up is just find me on LinkedIn, type in Brad Freyer on LinkedIn, and shoot me a message. And that's probably the easiest way to find me.
Gotcha. We'll put his LinkedIn link or whatever in the show notes, so you guys can go hit that. And then what an amazing resource you've been, even in the short time. And then over the years, man, you've had a ton of impact on me, many of the leaders that I hired, many of the salespeople that went through our system back in the day, and those successes, they stay with you, man. They're like the mental, it's what allows us to be more confident in the next obstacle or challenge that we face. Cause we're like, oh, I've faced harder. I've done more difficult. And then you're emboldened and you keep moving forward. So you've had an impact on a number of people, brother. So I want
awesome,
to
man.
thank
Great
you.
to hear that. I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah. Is there anything we didn't talk about today that you were hoping to get out there? Anything you're hoping I asked, or anything last nuggets you want to share? Take your time.
No, man, I'm honored to be on your show today. It's so great to catch up. I couldn't be more excited for you and the success you're having. And I look forward to continuing to follow you and see the great things that you got ahead, man. I'm really, really excited for you.
All right. Hey, thank you so much, Brad. I appreciate it. Well, all right. That's our show. So hopefully you've enjoyed it. I know you've got some value. I took like 2 pages of notes, and I used to hang out with Brad all the time. So if you didn't, you need to go hit rewind, grab a pen and paper, and go get it. and go leave us a review, a written review, subscribe, rate the show. And then do me a favor, if you need to increase your sales or need to increase profitability, like Brad said, you're a president, a CEO, a sales leader, you're trying to increase that performance, talk to Brad. He'll absolutely make a positive impact on your team and your business. So go do that. And again, my name is Abel Pacheco. I'm your host for the 5 Talents podcast. Appreciate your time. We'll see you on our next show. Bye-bye. See you later, Brad.
Hey, man, y'all be good.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the 5 Talents podcast with your host, myself, Abel Pacheco. Each week, we're going to bring you interviews from industry experts and commercial real estate investors who followed their dreams and achieved massive success. Before you leave, let me ask you a few questions. Did you enjoy this episode? Did you learn something valuable? Was your mind stretched to what's possible and what you can achieve? Do you want other experts just like the one you heard today? If you answered yes to any or all of those questions, then please take a moment to subscribe to the 5 Talents podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and most importantly, leave us a written review. Tell us what you liked, tell us your favorite guest, give us any feedback. I'm excited to learn and improve so you can get a more valuable show. So thank you again for subscribing to the 5 Talents podcast.